Adventures of the Mighty Toad Patrol, a feature-length musical cartoon fantasy based upon Boy Scouts of America, Troop 8, Burbank, California, by Bob, Trudy, and David Hillman. A 3H production, The Orchid Bear Affair. Time to get ready for bed now, called Mrs. Toad from the other room. But Davy Toad and his friends, who were staying overnight, were too involved in a fast-moving, good old-fashioned pillow fight to hear her. A few minutes later...
Okay, fellas, it's time to call it a day.
Mr. Toad's untimely arrival found him at the mercy of a ferocious pillow. He fought bravely, but almost at once it was apparent that poor Mr. Toad was no match for so powerful an enemy. One pillow after another joined in the fiendish attack, showing him no mercy whatsoever. There was a time when a toad could call his home on the ground his castle. From there, he could fight off the entire forest, if need be. But alas, such was no longer the case, and Mr. Toad soon found himself prisoner. The captain of the Pillow Brigade, a stout-hearted young lad, obviously of noble birth, stepped forward and spoke. "A story of your life," he demanded.
I'll make a bargain with you.
Pleaded Mr. Toad.
I'll tell you a story, if you all promise to get right to sleep when I've finished.
The young captain turned to his men. They all gathered in a circle to discuss the offer. The tension was almost unbearable for Mr. Toad. Suddenly, the confident captain turned. "Agreed," he said. The young toads grabbed their pillows and settled themselves on the floor as Mr. Toad turned down the lamps. When all was quiet, Mr. Toad began.
Once upon a time...
Oh, God, Mr. Toad, cried Davy Toad's friend Toddy. We're too old for that kind of story. Tell us one about the mighty Toad Patrol.
Yeah, the Toad Patrol, Mr. Toad. Please, huh?
Please, Mr. Toad, huh? Will you, huh? What, Dad? Come on, joined in Davy.
All right, fellas,
said Mr. Toad.
The Mighty Toad Patrol it is.
Mr. Toad thought for a moment and then began.
Once upon a time...
That's more like it, said Davy's friend.
Once upon a time...
continued Mr. Toad.
A long time ago, when the animals ruled the world and mankind hadn't been invented yet, the mighty Toad Patrol with its gallant Toadmaster was off to Toad Mountain for another Toad Scout camp-out at their favorite campsite before the already late snows came. As their car, loaded down with camping gear, drove through the unspoiled countryside, they could be heard singing their favorite song, Let's Go Camping. The car rounded a sharp bend in the road. The Toadmaster pointed to a sign they were approaching.
Toad Mountain Campground.
They had arrived at last. The Toads cheered as their car turned off the main road onto the narrow, twisting dirt road that led up to their favorite campsite. After having traveled most of the day, the Toads were very tired. However, the tents had to be set up and supper cooked. To make matters worse, the sun had set long ago behind the surrounding mountains. The darkness was complete except for the Toads' flashlight beams and the sky above filled with the glitter of the unborn constellations. But being good and true Toad Scouts, they met their problems head-on without grumbling or whining or griping. And before long, the tents were pitched, supper cooked and eaten, the dishes cleaned and put away, and the whole area spick and span. And there was even enough time left over to roast a few marshmallows over an evening campfire, sing a song or two, and listen to a spooky story by the Toadmaster to liven things up a bit. While Marky went to his tent to get his guitar, the boys got the fire going and broke out the marshmallows. When everything was set, the Toadmaster asked Davy to sing the song that he had composed.
Okay, Mr. Toadmaster.
Said Davy.
Will you please start me off, Marky?
Very good, Davy, said the Toadmaster. Then he turned and asked the Toads, "Let's give Davy 2.5 howls." The Toads responded with 2 boisterous
Howl! Howl!
and 1 great big
Ugh!
Then each face lit up with a friendly smile as the Toads gave Davy a round of regular applause.
Good.
How about a spooky story before we have our closing, fellas? Asked the Toadmaster. Needless to say, no one offered any objections. After all, who could tell a spookier story than the Toadmaster? Have any of you heard the legend of Toad Mountain?
You mean
this Toad Mountain that we're on?
queried Toad Scout Leland.
The one we're on now, Mr. Toadmaster?
Yes, replied the Toadmaster ominously. The very same. A chill went through the toads, and they moved in closer to the Toadmaster and the security of the fire. When the toads were settled in their places, the Toadmaster began his story, the legend of Toad Mountain. Somewhere deep within Toad Mountain lived a noisy Bengal dolphin. Oh, such a lonely Bengal dolphin. He needed company. Did he? Though all the other Bengal dolphins were as cruel and mean as he was, still, he invited them to stay and to share his misery. On a very dark and gloomy day began a little spat among themselves. Together they had fought so thoroughly, the only monster left was he.
Ooh.
Then the lonely Bengal dolphin came out of his rumbling mountain, searching for someone new to chew. And I'm sure it will be you!
You didn't scare me, Mr. Toadmaster.
Then come down out of the tree, Kenny, said the Toadmaster. When the rest of the toads crawled out from under the rocks and tents, the Toadmaster reminded the toads that it was time to call it a day. Each of you get a twig of cedar from this tree, and then we'll have our closing around the campfire. When the toads were ready, the Toadmaster said, "All together now. Ready? Begin the Toad Patrol oath or promise."
On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to the Creator and the forest, and to live up to the Toad Patrol law, to help other animals at all times, to keep myself in real good shape, have a healthy mind, and do good deeds every day.
Now we'll sing the Toad Law song, with each of you taking one part at a time. Davy, please lead off.
The Toad Patrol law.
Now all of you gather around the campfire in a circle of friendship. Then, as I give the Toadmaster's benediction, one at a time, toss into the fire your twig of cedar, which symbolizes the spirit of friendship and the outdoor way of life. As each twig is thrown in, the fire of friendship will become brighter and brighter until its glow will warm all your hearts. Let us begin. One by one, the toads tossed their twig of cedar into the fire, as the Toadmaster said, the Toadmaster's benediction. And now, may the great Toadmaster of all good toads be with us until we meet again. Good night, Toads.
Good night, Mr. Toadmaster. Good night.
The Toadmaster let the toads have about half an hour to settle down in their tent before it was time for tap. As the last notes of tap were fading out in the distance, Sammy, the patrol bugler, crawled into his tent and into his sleeping bag. After a final cup of coffee, the Toadmaster put out the last glowing coals of the fire, made the evening bed check, and turned in for the night. A short time later, with the silence of the night broken only by the occasional snoring of the Toadmaster, a cloud appeared on the horizon. Then a few leaves began to swirl around the campsite. Before long, the stars were gobbled up by black, angry clouds that raced across the sky as though they were late for a rendezvous with time. And late they were, for riding low in the swollen bellies of the hurrying clouds were the long, overdue snows of winter. At first it rained, but as the warm air cooled, tiny snowflakes began to appear. Soon the little crystals of snow became giants the size of flattened marshmallows. Lightning flashed and the thunder ricocheted back and forth between the mountains as if the end of the world were at hand. The winds tore at the tents in an angry attempt to tear them down. But in spite of the howling winds and explosions of thunder, the mighty Toad Patrol with its fearless leader continued to dream until...
Mr. Toadmaster, wake up, please.
What is it, Richie?
It's raining and snowing and our tent's all down, so I'm going to sleep with Lee and my brother Sammy.
All right, Richie. Good night. And thank you for telling me. Good night.
Good night, Mr. Toadmaster. And oh yes, by the way, Toddy is missing. Good night.
It took a minute to sink in, but when it did, the Toadmaster came flying out of his tent, ran over to where Richie was just settling down. Richie, called the Toadmaster, did you say that Toddy was missing?
Yes, sir, Mr. Toadmaster. I looked around, but...
The Toadmaster didn't wait. Immediately, he looked for footprints in the snow, but there were none but his own. Maybe he went to the outhouse and decided to wait for the snow to let up before coming back to his tent, thought the Toadmaster. But when he got there, the outhouse was empty. As he returned to the tent area, he called, "Toddy!" over and over, but got no answer. I'll have to get the Toads up and form a search party. We've got to find him. He won't survive a night like this. He must have gone exploring and... Oh! The Toadmaster's thoughts were interrupted as he tripped over something in the snow. Dumb, stupid, tent pig, thought the Toadmaster. There ought to be a law. But it wasn't a tent peg. The Toadmaster picked himself up out of the slush and took a closer look. It was the bottom of Toddy's sleeping bag, sticking out of the fallen tent. He felt it. There was someone in it. "Toddy! Toddy!" No answer. The Toadmaster shook the sleeping bag frantically. "Toddy! Toddy! Are you all right?" From inside the fallen tent came a very sleepy and irritated voice.
Go away!
Said Toddy. Toddy, wake up. It's raining and snowing and your tent has fallen. About this time, even though the toads were the best tent-putter-uppers around, the combination of wind and a thick layer of wet snow got the better of the tent, and they all came down. "We'll have to spend the night in the car, fellas," shouted the Toadmaster. "Grab your sleeping bags and go. Marky, come and help Toddy get out of his tent." Finally, when Toddy was able to stick his head out, he made a most remarkable observation.
Hey, everybody! It's snowing!
By morning, the rain had stopped, but the snow still fell. The branches of the trees were bent over with their heavy burdens, and in the pre-dawn light that filtered through the clouds, Toad Mountain was as beautiful as could be. But inside the car were 10 toads and 1 Toadmaster, who couldn't care less.